going to work on rational expressions and powers. If you want to go across, you could remember that this is still going to be a negative term, but you don't do it like this. I'm just doing this to remember the concept that this negative times this negative is a positive because we're multiplying, and times this negative would make this a negative. But guess what? Since we're doing it as a powers rule, remember, your rule of powers says that once you have a negative power, it goes where? It goes as a fraction. It goes under. This is one of the hardest concepts and the easiest things to get done. So we go 1/8 times 4, because this is 2 times 2. That's a positive power. Just straight out, you're doing 2 times -2, and you're getting 4. Okay, you get 2 times 2. Either way, and you're getting 4. Okay, so that's 1/8 times 4 over 1, which is 4/8. You reduce here. 4 goes into itself 1 time, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So you get a half, and your answer is D. If you chose these other answers, the 4, that means that you just went here and you forgot about the negative. I don't know why you choose B, because B is impossible, because you're doing 2, you're multiplying 2 times, and you're doing 2 to the -3rd power. You cannot do that. I can see how you might choose 1/4 because you're thinking this is 1/8 and therefore this is 1/4, but that's not what's happening, because that's a positive number. Quick and easy, please don't confuse the steps. Here's the thing. This is the same problem, but guess what? It changed. So it's 2 to the -2nd. It's 2 to the -3rd power times 2 to the -2nd. You can call this 2 negative cubed, 2 negative squared. But you have a powers rule. Powers rule says that this -3 plus this -2 makes this a -5. You're taking 2 down. The inverse of 2, because this is always 2 over 1, is going to equal, I'm just going to draw an arrow for the inverse, is always going to equal 1/2. That's its inverse. So you always take that down, and that inverse is going to take this to 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, and you're going to get 1 to the 32nd. Okay, very simple, and all of these choices here were positive. 2 to the -3rd would be 1/2, would be 1/8. You don't even have a possible choice in any of these others. So they should have been immediately eliminated once you know the rules. Okay, which graph represents the inequality below? Okay, let's go. 5y plus 10 is greater than 0. Both are open graphs. On a real SAT or any test, you'd have 4 choices, but let's go just over this concept. You have 5y plus 10 is greater than 0. Let's not play around with this. This is an addition sign. So you take the additive inverse of this, which is -10, greater than -10. Keep the sign because we're not swapping yet. Go 0. Oh, wow, -10. Already done. Are you guys thinking about things already? 5y is greater than -10. 1/5 times 5 over 1. Y is greater than -10 over 1 times 1/5. The reason I got so excited just now is because you should already be thinking that this is -10 over 5, which is going to give you -2. Okay, now, is it included? This says that 5 times negative 10 plus 10 has to be greater than 0. So why are we doing this here? Because we want the y value here. 5y is the only variable we have, so this is asking you what can you put in here. If you put 0, it's going to be 10 is greater than 0. Okay, so all your choices have to make sure that whatever value was put here. So let's try y. Okay, if you try 1 at 5 and y, I'm sorry, let's try 1 for y. That would be 5 plus 10 would be 15, which is greater than 0. So actually, if you tried a negative 1, let's see if that would work. Because see, here's what happens. Your brain is just looking at this and going, oh, it must be greater than anything. If you tried y's value of negative 1, you would get negative 5 plus 10 is greater than 0. Well, that's correct, because guess what? This is still going to be 5 is greater than 0, but here's the problem with this graph. This graph says negative 2 and less. See, and that can't happen. Okay, so because you had a negative 2 here, we have to make sure that we can get this in here. So that's why B is out. Okay, because your negative 2 is going to make this 5 times negative 2 is going to make this a 10. Negative 2 substituted by 5 is going to make this negative 10 plus a 10, and your value is going to be greater than 0. So you leave it open because it means not negative 2 as a value, but everything else past negative 2 is okay. So we can try again and see, and we can go here and see if we can help. Let's put in negative 1. We did negative 1, and we saw that that was positive 5. That was okay. If we put in 0, that's a 0. We get a 5 times 0. That's a 0 plus a 10. And that means that 10 is greater than 0. So they all work. It is when we start doing negative numbers, like if we did something like negative 3, and this became 5 times negative 3, which is negative 15 plus 10. Guess what? You now have a negative 5. Is negative 5 greater than 0? No. Negative 5 is less than 0. And that's what this graph says. That's why the second graph, choice B, is out. Just look at what's going on, plug your numbers back in, and quite frankly, the only choice you can have now is A. That's how that graph is done. Okay, our last and final question is the square root of x plus 4 equals 7. You can already think what should go here, and if you're thinking it's 9, because when you square 9, you get 3. But if you get confused and you don't want to do this, or you want to take the time to do this, go ahead and do the problems, and just remember that this 4 is on the outside. Sorry, that's a bad arrow. This 4 is on the outside. And so all you have to do is take this 4, the additive inverse, as I mentioned here, over to the other side. You get 7 4 is 3. Next slide will show you that this is really x equals 3. And then you're going to square this. That's the next slide, though. Thanks for watching. This is the last problem, but look at the next slide, please. So this is the original equation up here. That's all this is. We're still solving. You have square root of x equals 3. You can cross out the plus sign, the zeros I did on the other side, and just go to square root of x equals 3. Why are we doing this? Because you have to get rid of the square on the other side. So you have the square root of x times square root of x. And since you squared these two, because technically what you did is you went the square root of x, and you squared it, meaning once you take these two times themselves, which I showed you over here, you're getting rid of the bracket. And then it's just x by itself. But because you squared on this side, you have to square on this side. So it's 3 squared, x equals 9. Okay, x equals, I'm sorry, 3, because it's 3 squared. So your answer is square root of 9, and so you have your A question here. But remember the square root, so you go square root of 9 plus 4, and this square root is 3. So 3 plus 4 equals 7. Done. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please go ahead and email us, jacobitslearning@gmail.com. The address is on the first slide.